Real estate agents are absolutely ecstatic about this NAR settlement, said no one ever. Well, let me rephrase that, said one person in the article that we're about to react to, courtesy of NBC News. We're going to go through an article that was written by an individual that clearly has the talking points, at least the major talking points, down, and they decided to put that on in writing, as many of the media folks have been doing. So we're going to go through line by line, and we're going to present a different opinion. We're going to present a different set of facts, if you will, to see which argument wins, which one's going to win right now in terms of you can directly compare, and also where we would win out in the next 6 months, 12 months, and beyond if we're in the prediction game. Consumer advocates and even some realtors, this is going to be very important. And I don't want to give away the ending, but this whole even some realtors is very important. Hail NAR settlement. We've opened up the entire industry for competition. So again, this entire thing, there's going to be points that we address, but really I want to do a callback to this little comment right here. And there's going to be several comments here that we're going to highlight and really stress test to see if it's true or not. And even some realtors. We're gonna do a callback. So this article was written by Rob Weil from NBC News. The process of home buying a home has seemingly never been simpler. Find a property on a listings website, reach out to a listing agent, tour the property, and make an offer. So it's so simple, folks. It's so simple, the model that they're petitioning for. So I, as a home buyer, want to buy a home. I'm going to go to Zillow. I'm going to find a property that I like. And then I'm going to reach out to the listing agent. Hey, listing agent, can you show me this property? Can you do this on Friday at 2 p.m.? No? Okay, how about Friday at 5 p.m.? Awesome, great. Hey, I also see another property that I like. Well, let me go reach out to that listing agent and try to see if I can get in on Friday at 4 p.m. And I'm going to continue doing that, and then I'm going to reach out to 8 different individuals, and I'm going to do that over and over again. Now, whenever I'm ready to make an offer, that in of itself, people that have time, awesome, great. Or the way that it works right now with agents are taking on all of that responsibility, to where I'm looking at it right now, all of the transactions that we have going on. Some of our agents are doing 8 showings to one single client today, and they're communicating on when that's going to happen. So it's the agent that goes and does the entire research on the listings that have offers, listings that are have highest and best by a certain amount of time, scheduling everything so everything is good to go. But anyway, forgetting the scheduling side aside, let's talk about the important part of, hey, I found the home of my dreams. I went to go see it. It's great. Now I want to buy that house. Listing agent, help me do this. In this world, in the world that you're looking to create, Mr. Author, you have the listing agent. You're putting your trust from the buyer side on the listing agent that doesn't represent you. It's almost like working with the opposing counsel at this point, right? So you have foregone your right and your access, and let me forget right for a second, your access to representation that can negotiate for you, that can help you purchase, that can help you navigate this transaction that on average you're going to do every 7 to 9 years. You've done away with that. Now you're going to go with that listing agent that, again, doesn't represent you, doesn't have your best interest, and has a fiduciary duty to the seller, to the homeowner. So essentially you're wanting to go back in time to 1996, prior to 1996, when buyer agency was not a thing. So you're essentially wanting to go back in time and are not being an advocate for the consumer. That's essentially what you're doing. You just don't know it. Or if you do know it, then that's pretty disingenuous. But let's continue, because that's just the first paragraph. But for years behind the scenes, experts say, this whole line of experts say is going to come up a lot. Buckle up. People say, consumers say, well, people say a lot of things. Experts say a lot of things. Sources say that this author is interesting. Sources say, consumers have not been fully aware of the ultimate cost of potential conflict of interest when searching for a home, and potential conflicts of interest. There is one point where they bring up that it's actually a valid point with the potential conflict of interest. We're going to allude to that very, very quickly. But beyond that, here's how I know that this is not true. And here's how we're going to know, and I'm going to be proved right in 12 months, in 6 months. But this whole potential conflicts of interest, how I'm going to be able to prove that what conflict of interest, whether as big or as small as it exists today, is nothing in comparison to what's going to happen here in when all these changes get implemented. How will I know that? Well, when the litigation with the lawsuits rise by 800%, where home sellers get sued 10x or 8x in this example, where listing agents get sued 8 times more. You're going to see the rise in litigation. So this whole notion of potential conflicts of interest, whether they're small or big right now that we currently have, it's going to be nothing in comparison to the new norm with the rise in litigation, because with buyers that are not able to afford representation at this point, or not able to, or maybe they are able to, but they just were lied by the media in terms that they're better off going at it themselves and hopefully get a price cut, which is not going to happen. And I'll prove that to you here shortly. Those buyers, they're going to feel disenfranchised. They're going to feel a little bit aggrieved if something goes wrong. Hey, you didn't tell me about X, Y, and Z. Hey, you didn't tell me about all this other stuff. Hey, blah, 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 right? So there's people that feel slighted, people that feel cheated, people that feel wronged in some way. Well, you can sue. You can sue for anything and everything. So wait for that to happen. And the whole potential conflicts of interest that exists right now, according to this article, is going to be nothing in comparison to what's going to happen. How am I going to be proved right? Wait till the stats come out in 12 months when this all starts coming to a head. Or we start have data, like it's happening right now. But once we start getting some data on it, it's going to be quite interesting. And then they continue to go on and put some statements out by some professionals. So you have some professors here and all that stuff. Now, I wanted to highlight this. When someone goes looking for a home today, so they're going to today, they are in most cases intercepted by a broker who has access to certain listings and who will work with the buyer at no cost upfront to help them get into a home. I see nothing wrong with this one. But then the whole notion of getting intercepted by a broker, buyers can go and be unrepresented right now. It's not recommended, but they can do that right now. Oftentimes the buyers that are attempting to go unrepresented don't necessarily know that there's a better way to go represented and have an agent, a buyer's agent, bear all of the risk up front, bear all the risk that the buyer isn't lying to them, that they're working with another agent, bear the risk of, even though they should have gotten buyer rep agreements, is something that we teach here internally, but beside the point, you're able to do that right now. But this whole notion of being intercepted by a broker is a bit disingenuous. No one's getting intercepted by anybody. You have access to do that from day one, and also access to certain listings. I don't necessarily know if he's alluding to like pocket listings or listings just within the office or something like that. But since they're referencing NAR, well, there are certain regulations and rules that we have to follow, that once we get a listing, we have to put on the MLS and make it available to everybody, assuming that it's not just be marketed to the office itself. So if you make it public, if you make it accessible, you have to make it accessible to everybody. So this whole access of you have access to certain listings, I don't know where that's coming from, and it wouldn't even pertain to this particular situation. All right, so therein lies a common misconception. Experts interviewed by NBC News said, although a home buyer who puts their property up for sale must hire professionals to market their home, somebody should tell FSBOs that. FSBOs, you have to hire a professional to market your home. They usually fold the cost into the final price paid by the buyer. Oh, and FSBOs, lower your prices. Stop trying to get $60,000 over market price, because you're supposed to lower the value. They're supposed to lower the asking price. So the buyers that are not going to come and be represented by anybody, and you yourself are not paying commissions, you're supposed to lower your value so it actually helps the buyer out. What are we doing? Come on now. So the property must hire professionals to market their home. So I was unaware of this. I was unaware that you have to hire professionals. Again, somebody should tell FSBOs that, for sale by owners. The buyer brings the entire purchase price to the table, Ledin said, so it's the associate professor, and the seller gets to keep a little bit more of that after this ruling. You know, at this point, I don't know why they wrote this. This author wrote this because from here on out, they've lost the argument. So the seller gets to keep a little bit more of that after the ruling. So they completely worked against themselves. Again, I don't necessarily know if they caught exactly what they did based off of the wording. I don't think that if they knew that this argument actually worked against them, they would have included this here. So again, I don't understand why they would keep this here, but they did. So they gave away the plot. So, and the seller gets to keep a little bit more of that after this ruling. Well, if the seller is collecting the same amount, and let me rephrase that, if the seller is receiving a certain amount and now they're not paying for, let's say, buyer agent commissions, they're keeping it? No way. Why didn't they just lower the value of their home so then they could pass on the savings to the buyer? Oh, that's right, because when you're selling your home, you're looking to receive the highest return on investment. You're looking to get the most possible bang for your buck, right? So if you have the option of lowering your price because you're going to save your, if you have the option of selling at the same value, if you will, regardless of if there's commissions or not, why wouldn't you just keep it the same value? Or try to be a little bit more, again, go back to the FSBO, right? So you have a lot of FSBOs out there going way above market because maybe they just don't know the price, or maybe they know the price, but they want to get a little bit more, right? Or maybe they like to start off high in order to negotiate lower. But at that point, again, they're looking to maximize their return on investment. So from the buyer's perspective, it's not that they're paying less on the home, because they're not. So this whole notion of prices going down is just not going to happen. All right, so as part of the new settlement, the buyer should now be fully apprised up front about any potential fees or commissions they'll ultimately have to pay whenever we're using. For the record, here's where I have to be a little bit, here's where I have to be completely candid. Well, I'm going to be candid throughout, but not all states require you to have a buyer rep agreement. Now, there are a good amount of states that do require to have a buyer rep agreement where it's actually spelled out what the commission is, and also that's this is all written in stone. This is a buyer rep agreement. This is something that you sign up front with the buyer, and it lets you know exactly if there's a delta in terms of the commission and the fee that the buyer's agent is not receiving the full compensation that they're seeking, then that responsibility would go on to the buyer. The same thing that is being petitioned for right now, same thing that's already been happening. That's because the agreement requires that a buyer sign a formal contract with the buyer laying out. So again, buyer rep agreements are doing that already. Now again, to be completely fair, to be completely transparent, not all states require this. Many brokerages, many large brokerages require this, but not all states require this or even have it. So just to be completely fair there. Alternative, a home buyer could decide not to hire a broker and instead put their search cost toward a real estate lawyer, appraiser, or someone else with the knowledge of a housing market, experts say. All right, so at this point, the buyer has foregone the no upfront investment, no upfront cost, and is going to piecemeal together the Avengers of purchasing a real estate property. So here you're still looking at taking a process that had no upfront cost. Let me rephrase that. That had, there was no upfront cost for the most part. Some buyer's agents would have comes like a fee, if you will, but that's very few far in between. So the friction to purchase a home, the support that you had to purchase a home, is gone away with. Now you're going to add more work, and you're going to try to add everybody else together with the hope that you're going to be paying less in the property, with the hope that you're going to be saving more. But you're adding cost, you're not reducing it. And then a seller could even offer to cover the cost of a buyer's team as an incentive to attract more buyers. That almost sounds like a co-broke opportunity. That almost sounds like the way that real estate has been happening right now. Again, somebody should tell this author. Of course, for a property that's garnering a lot of attention, such buyer incentives are unlikely to be on the table. Okay, so when there's more demand and whenever it's actually harder to get the property, chances are that one, the buyer's going to still have to pay that top dollar, if not more, and they're not receiving the support from a financial standpoint. Let's continue. All right, now you can hire an attorney for $1,500 instead of paying a $50,000 commission. I don't know where $50,000 came from. Are they selling a $1.8 million house or something like that? Said Doug Miller, a real estate lawyer. Okay, based in Minnesota, who helped launch the actions that led to the NAR settlement. Okay, well, that's interesting. Whomever a prospective buyer chooses as a representative in the home buying process, the NAR settlement now formally bans the seller's ability to advertise a commission for the buyer's reps on the multiple listing service. Well, it wasn't the seller's ability, it was more of the co-broke, so it was the broker's ability. But let's continue. For its part, the NAR has maintained, the National Association of Realtors has maintained that the free market has always set commission levels and that they are always negotiable and even useful. I appreciate this being included because that is the position that still remains. Offers the compensation help make professional representation more accessible. Facts. Decrease costs for home buyers to secure the services. Increase fair housing opportunities and increase the potential buyer pool for sellers. The NAR said in its March 15th statement announcing the agreement. But in most cases, this is where it goes back to the author's point, but in most cases, there was little difference in the amount being offered for those commissions in a given market, usually about 3%. Well, if you go to any market out there, so there's some that on average are paying 1.5%, on average are paying 2%, on average are paying 2.5%, on average are paying 3%. So the market has dictated that. So remember, there's over, just from the NAR perspective, there's over 1.5 million real estate agents within NAR. This is not the entire real estate agents pool. There's over 2 million real estate licenses out there. But if you're looking at all that, and if you're talking about competition, at any point in time, an agent can go in there and offer to sell a house for free, can go in there and offer to sell the house for all in 2%, 1%, 2%, 3%. How do you think Redfin got its start? How they reduced their overall compensation from a percentage standpoint. They up the fees, don't mishear me, but from a commissions percentage, that's their thing. That's a 1% model. That's been their thing, right? So again, this is just, I guess, par for the course. Alrighty. The future here is that the buyers will now be in the driver's seat. You are correct in the sense that they are going to be working a lot more. Instead of that commission money going to their agent, it can now go directly to the buyer. I don't see in what way. It's the same amount of money, but now the buyer gets money instead of a buyer's agent, and they can decide on what to do with it. So let's just say you're going to offer a house. Let's just say the house is $500,000. And now you're going to pay an attorney, whatever you're going to pay that attorney. You're going to pay you're going to do all this other expense, right? So let's just talk about the attorney and be super gracious and say it's only going to be $1,500 according to that attorney, which I want to see what they invoice and if that's true. But anyway, let's just say we have that $1,500 expense from that attorney. So that cost is up front. Well, I still have my down payment. I still have everything else. So factor in the additional, those costs already that you would have regardless if you had an agent or not. But let's just factor in that $1,500 in extra. Are you telling me now that that $500,000 home, whether it has an agent or not, that seller is going to have already priced that in, has already priced in that, hey, I'm not paying agent commission, so I'm going to actually try to sell this house for a little bit less than what the market is because I'm not paying a buyer agent's commissions. So I am going to either make the same, if not more, through that concession. So from a buyer's perspective, so not only are you going in represented, now you have an additional cost, and the value of your home is, the price of the home that you're purchasing has not gone down. Because again, we just talked about it from the case study right here is the FSBOs. So for sale by owners, they're not out there dropping their prices below market values. They're going on the other end. they're trying to get as much as possible, even if it doesn't make sense, even if that property stays on the market forever. They're not going to drop that price because they're looking to capture as much value as possible, right? So you've added an expense. You haven't taken away. There's no point that the money that they end up using ends up going to the buyers. Let's go back to that previous point that was stated. The seller gets to keep a little bit more. That is 100% true. That's why I said you should have just stopped at this article, at this. Well, one, either not included that or just stopped your argument at that point, because everything down here is just not going to make sense, because the seller is going to keep it. It's not that the buyer is going to keep more, but now the buyer gets more money instead of the buyer's agent. Okay. What's more, greater competition for clients is likely a result of lower costs across the board. Yet to be seen. A lot of when you introduce a ton of transparency to the marketplace, that has historically lacked it. Any economist will tell you it reduces friction, commissions, and those are some of the highest in the world. So let's talk about the highest in the world. When you're looking at a percentage basis, if you go to try to auction off some like art at Sotheby's or Christie's, their commission to do that is 15%. Attorneys, the example right here, the contingency fees that they have with the NAR settlement, and most settlements out there, they're collecting over 40% of the judgment before anything gets distributed to the hundreds of thousands of people that are potentially eligible for this. So when you're looking at some of the highest in the world, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. You're taking up 40%. If you really feel that the sellers were aggrieved, would you be charging 40%? If you really felt that way, you being attorneys, would you be taking 40%? Well, let's take it one step further. Would you allow, or are you allowing, those folks that are participating in the class action suit to negotiate how much you receive and how much they get to receive? Do they have the option of saying, hey, you know what? I'll allow you to use my name. I'll participate in this class action suit. I received this postcard from you saying that I could receive a couple $100 on this. So I'll allow you to use my name. I'll participate in this whole being aggrieved thing, but I'm not really too comfortable with you receiving 40% of the take. I want you to receive 10%. Are you allowing for that conversation? Or are you price fixing? Okay, let's continue. Many experts, including other real estate professionals, agree the settlement will effectively thin the ranks of fly-by-night agents who served in the intermediary, a phenomenon. Well, anyway, so essentially this alluding to less experienced agents. This is where I do have to give them a point here on, yeah, it will reduce the real estate agents, the fly-by-night agents, those that are hobbyist agents. It will reduce those. That's not a bad thing. So again, I'm trying to be fair here. That's not a bad thing. And at no point did this individual quote a realtor that was hailing this NAR settlement. So that's really where it all started from. I saw this headline and I thought it was super interesting. But let me know in the comment section down below what your opinion is on some of the points here that were brought up. Do you think that there's the overall is a good thing? Do you think that there's some points in here that maybe I should have elaborated on a little bit more, that I got wrong? Open to a conversation. Just let me know in the comment section down below. I'll see you on the next one.